Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. A huge win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've got a full recap, reactions, all of this to come, but we do want to shout out our presenting sponsor. That is BetQL. We're going to tell you all about them. But if you go to chatsports.com/SteelersQL, use the promo code ChatSteelers, you are going to get 25% off all of your subscription offerings. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers won against the Seattle Seahawks 23-20 in what was not a pretty game, an insane ending. Like, honestly, one of the craziest endings, in my opinion, that I've seen all season. Just to recap, the end of regulation was insane. You could see the Seahawks, they had that catch that was a fumble, recovery, they spike 1 second left, and yet then they had to review it. So then obviously then the Seahawks now get 3 seconds to kick the field goal, which means that they were able to spike it, take the time to reset. Mike Tomlin was not happy about this. And to be fair, I understand why he wasn't, because that extra pressure would have maybe resulted in a different outcome as far as just the end of regulation. Luckily, it did work out for Pittsburgh, so we can't be too upset. But I want to get your first one-word reaction to this win for the Steelers. There is a lot to unpack here, and there is a lot of things to talk about. My one-word reaction, though, is the obvious, and that is Watt. TJ Watt is amazing. He deserves every penny that he is being paid. Honestly, guys, and I know we talked about earlier just how we didn't see much of him out of the last couple weeks. You know, he was kind of quiet. Well, he was not quiet tonight. And so this, to me, this game is his. He had 7 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and the forced fumble at the end that literally won the game for the Steelers. So that is my first takeaway. TJ Watt is still amazing. He won the game for Pittsburgh. All credit goes to him, and I think everyone can pretty much agree on that. And it was a sloppy win. So we are very thankful to have a guy like TJ Watt on the Steelers defense. A lot of other things to get into. I don't want to take what was a positive win for the Pittsburgh Steelers and immediately go into negative things. But I do have to stay in reality, touch on some of the important things, which was the offensive performance was kind of average. Like, that's just, it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't terrible. We've obviously seen a lot worse from the Steelers offense, but I'd say it's still a struggling unit. We're still trying to fit the pieces all together. And, they were without Juju for the first time, so we saw that. But Big Ben was 29 for 40, 229 yards, 1 touchdown. And, man, that fumble, a little controversial there. But to be fair, I understand where the refs were coming from on that. I do not understand where the refs were coming from with replaying the DK catch and having to review that. But as far as the fumble, hey, I get it. It was ruled incomplete. Then it was changed to a fumble. It was bad, but in all honesty, it does make sense. So I am going to say Big Ben did mess up there. And luckily the Seahawks didn't end up scoring on that drive. So therefore he was kind of saved. Also, he had a really bad fourth quarter throw that literally landed in Jamal Adams' face. And thankfully Jamal Adams dropped the ball and saved Big Ben from that. That literally could have cost the Steelers the game. So he got saved right there. But Big Ben, he still has some improvement. There is still things that need to get resolved there. But I will say he did play at least a decent performance, enough to bring the Steelers to a victory. And hey, they over-under pushed. That was at 43. That is exactly what the score was. By the way, I did go look at the score predictions that you guys left in our preview, and no one got it right. So hopefully next week, one of you guys will get it right so we can shout you guys out on this channel. Now, the favorite was Steelers at -5.5. The Seahawks did cover this, and our presenting sponsor, BetQL, they did call this. They had the Seahawks to cover. Obviously, the Seahawks did cover by the Steelers only winning by 3. Now, BetQL, if you haven't heard about them, they offer the best bet recommendations. Whether you're going to bet on player props, spreads, over-unders, they really have it all. So if you guys are betting this season on any sports, you want to go check out BetQL so you make sure you're betting wisely. Chatsports.com/SteelersQL. You've got to use the promo code ChatSteelers. You're going to get 25% off of all of their subscription offerings. Now, Deontay Johnson, I think had a pretty decent game. He had a really nice jet sweep, 25-yard run. It was a very explosive play. I think we saw a good amount of third down conversions from Johnson. He did have that fourth quarter drop that was very unlike him. He's not a guy that typically drops passes. So I'll say Deontay Johnson is going to be utilized way more on this offense, obviously with Juju out for the season. So we're going to see a few mistakes by him, but ultimately I was impressed by him. I think that he has a little bit of work to do, but he was probably the best receiver we saw out there today. Najee Harris, on the other hand, who rushed over 100 yards last week, he had 81 yards this week, 24 carries, but 46 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and he did have the 1 receiving touchdown. So again, he's going to be utilized now a little bit differently with Juju out. We're not going to just see him rushing. We are going to be seeing him used as a receiving weapon, which I know Mike Tomlin didn't necessarily want to do. But when you're thin at receiver, you saw Chase Claypool. He went out for a sec dealing with a little bit of an injury. He obviously was fine, ended up playing, didn't play that great, to be honest. But overall, Najee Harris is going to be a guy that you're going to have to rely on different aspects. You're going to rely on him in the run game, obviously, and you're also going to rely on him in the receiving game while Juju Smith is out. And speaking of injuries, Dan Moore Jr., left tackle, he went out with I think it was a hip injury, and he did not come back in. Joe Haig came in to take his place. And so this is where Zach Banner would be playing at left tackle. Zach Banner was activated to the 53-man roster, but did not play tonight. So I'm guessing Mike Tomlin wanted to just play it safe there. We'll have more updates to come as far as Dan Moore Jr.'s hip injury. Another takeaway, initial reaction I have is that I think that the Steelers did a really good job at utilizing the tight ends. With Juju being gone, we're going to need to spread the ball. It can't all fall on Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And I think they did a great job with using Eric Ebron. He did fantastic. I mean, he had a rushing touchdown, which was amazing. And we saw Pat Freiermuth. He was used a lot more. And Zach Gentry, we saw a little bit out of him. But if they're going to use guys like Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth more, I think this is going to be huge weapons for the Pittsburgh offense while they are without Juju Smith-Schuster. Eric Ebron had 2 receptions, 10 yards, and he obviously had the 1 rushing touchdown. Pat Freiermuth, on the other hand, he had 7 receptions for 58 yards. So a lot of different offensive weapons used tonight, and a lot of obviously positive things we saw on the defensive side of things from guys like TJ Watt. If you can choose just one guy, who is the Steelers MVP for tonight's win? Mine is an obvious. It is clearly TJ Watt. I firmly believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers would not have gotten that win if it wasn't for TJ Watt. So he deserves every penny. He is worth the big contract. Now, BetQL is partnering up with BetMGM to offer you guys an insane deal right now. BetMGM is the sports book that they are using. So if you go to chatsports.com/SteelersMGM, all you got to do is create an account, put $10 into your account. 24 hours later, you are going to get a free year of BetQL. This is an insane deal. It is a match made in heaven. That means that you are going to get 1 full year free of the best bet recommendations. So guys, bet smart. Go to chatsports.com/SteelersMGM. Next takeaway I have is that the Steelers really had a struggling time tackling. They could not tackle, especially in the third quarter. Now, I'm not going to say they failed on this altogether, because in the first quarter we saw a little bit of this. It kind of fell off end of second, third. They gave up 309 yards, 165 passing yards, 144 rushing yards. They did have 5 sacks, so we're not going to, diminish what they did do. And the Seahawks were 3 of 12 on third down, so pretty good there. But really where I had a problem was the run game. They gave up 110 yards in the run game just in the third quarter. So, and I mean, by the way, the Seahawks weren't even with their top running back, Chris Carson, who was out. That was Alex Collins, their backup. And you do have to at least note that it was Geno Smith in. So you're going to hopefully see more pressure than you would, if you're going up against Russell Wilson. So the defense is to credit in some degree here, but I do think there's a lot of improvement that needs to be made. Cameron Hayward, though, he did have 1 sack, and I think that, he had a decent game, 9 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. So, he's a great player. And so I don't want to talk bad about Cameron Hayward, but he did miss a few tackles that were important. So we will see improvement by him, but ultimately, obviously, this is one of their best guys on defense. Now, we've got more recaps coming up for you guys, but if you want to stay updated all season long, make sure you are subscribed. We are going to be coming at you guys with news, trade rumors, previews. We've got it all here at Chat Sports, so please make sure you are subscribed. Now, the last takeaway that I have is Alex Highsmith. He played so well, and this was his breakout game. We knew it was coming. We hadn't seen too many dominant plays from him in the weeks leading up, but he had 1.5 sacks. He had 2 tackles for loss, 7 tackles. Alex Highsmith, to me, if TJ Watt was an MVP, he would be my number 2. I really think that we are only going to see him improve more and more, and he is going to be a key for this Pittsburgh's defense, and they're going to need them if the offense is not able to connect the way that they would like. Ultimately, though, they figured it out. It doesn't matter. A win is a win is a win. It could be ugly, but it still happened in 23-20 in overtime. Sunday Night Football for you. It always has the craziest endings, and obviously we saw that happen in the end of the fourth quarter into overtime. The Steelers now sit at tied at number 3 in the division. Ravens 5-1. Bengals 4-2, and both Steelers and Browns 3-3. So they are still in it. We are still in it, guys. It is not time to give up. And now the Steelers head on to their bye week, and they get to go in with a win in their pocket, feeling a little bit better, feeling a little bit more confident. Now, I want you guys to grade the Steelers' Week 6 performance. A win is obviously a positive thing, but it doesn't mean that it was perfect. So what are you going to grade them on a scale of A to F? F being the worst, A being perfect. I'm going to say I'll give them a B- because I saw a lot of effort, and I think they persevered throughout this entire game. There wasn't much giving up, which we saw earlier on in the season. So every week we're seeing a little bit of improvement. I am going to give the Steelers a B- for this win against the Seahawks.